This past Sunday, history was made. For the first time in NASCAR history, the final race of the season emanated from Phoenix. For nearly 2 decades, fans have become familiar with the championship race being held at Homestead Miami Speedway in Florida. But a change in venue was necessary, and so we got the season finale 500 from Phoenix International Speedway. It was the destination for the Championship 4, and it rounded out like this: Joey Logano, Chase Elliott, Brad Keselowski, and Denny Hamlin. These 4 drivers had all managed to punch their ticket into the Championship 4 through the round of 8. Logano was the first of these 4 drivers to do it by winning the race at Kansas to kick off the round of 8. And if you guys remember the Kansas race, that was where Kevin Harvick became a victim of dirty air and finished second to that number 22 Penske Ford. Keselowski and Hamlin were both locked in based on points, but Chase Elliott was the real talk of the town. Let's go back to 1 week ago at Martinsville Speedway, the final race in the round of 8. Keselowski, Hamlin, Logano, and Kevin Harvick were the 4 drivers looking to advance. Well, Logano, Hamlin, and Keselowski had already advanced. It was just Harvick that needed to. Elliott, Alex Bowman, Martin Truex Jr., and Kurt Busch were the drivers risking elimination. And so, Harvick was the major talking point of that day. The goal was simple for the number 4. If any of the bottom 4 drivers were not leading the race, Harvick would have a chance. That meant that as long as the number 9, the number 1, the number 19, or the number 88 were not leading the field, Harvick would still be alive and in the hunt for the championship. Things unfortunately didn't go too well for him. Even though that he had a bit of a mediocre run in Stage 1, he looked to improve in Stage 2. However, some unfortunate contact with the number 42 of Matt Kenseth caused a tire to get cut down, and Harvick was forced to pit under green. This resulted in him going 2 laps down and sitting in the middle of the pack for a very long time. With about 99 laps left to go in the race, Harvick managed to climb his way back into the top 10, erasing those 2 laps. But, yet again, things would go awry. As the final few laps began ticking down, there was only 1 point separating Harvick from Keselowski. 1 point separating Harvick from another Championship 4 appearance. 1 point separating Harvick from an opportunity to win his first championship since 2014. And the only thing he needed to do in order to make it to the Championship 4 was pass and finish ahead of the 2019 champion, Kyle Busch. At this point, Chase Elliott already had a really good lead and showed no signs of slowing down. He would go on to win the race and lock himself into the Championship 4 for the very first time. Harvick still had an opportunity, though it was a very slim one. Coming out of turn 4 on the last lap, Harvick made one final desperate move to try and get himself into the Championship 4 by spinning out Kyle Busch. The problem with that was that Harvick also spun himself out in the process. Harvick ended up spinning and hitting the inside wall, while Kyle Busch did the 360 and reset himself, allowing him to cruise across the finish line. Busch would go on to finish the race, but Harvick would be out of the playoffs. This sparked a huge outrage among the entire NASCAR community because after seeing how good Harvick was this season, being the winningest driver with 9 wins, well, you would expect him to make the Championship 4. But as fate would have it, and with how 2020 has continuously screwed people over, we could say that it was a rather not divine intervention that cost Kevin Harvick his shot at another championship. So now we fast forward to this past Sunday, Phoenix, Arizona, the final race of the season, and the opportunity to capture the championship. Chase Elliott was the dominant man in qualifying, winning the pole position. However, his team ended up failing pre-race inspection twice and were forced to start from the back of the field. This meant that the two drivers that would be leading this race into the first few laps would be Joey Logano and Brad Keselowski, who respectively qualified second and third. With those two drivers starting the race up in the front row, it was going to take a miracle for Chase Elliott to come back and win the championship. And you know what? That's exactly what happened. The race was really solid, with very few cautions occurring throughout the race. As a matter of fact, there was only really one caution per incident. Otherwise, you had the competition caution, and you had the cautions at the end of the stages. And a very interesting sight that occurred was that for the first time in NASCAR history, the championship four were running 1, 2, 3, 4. Joey Logano would end up winning stage 1, with Denny Hamlin, Chase Elliott, Brad Keselowski, and Ryan Blaney rounding out the top 5. Stage 2 ended in similar fashion, with Brad Keselowski taking the win. Chase Elliott would come in second, along with Logano, Hamlin, and Blaney once again finishing in 5th place. But when Stage 3 got going, there was no turning back. Every move mattered, because when you're one of the drivers battling for a championship, you can't afford to make any mistakes. And when a mistake was made, such as slow pit stops from Brad Keselowski, other drivers took advantage of that, specifically Chase Elliott. At one point in Stage 3, he managed to make the pass on Joey Logano for the lead, and the Hendrick Motorsports number 9 Chevy never looked back. He retained the lead once again and went on to win the race. And not only did he go on to win the race, he became the 2020 NASCAR Cup Series champion. Immediately, I thought back to how Jeff Gordon won his first championship in 1995, going from the rear to the front and capturing the gold. Jimmie Johnson also did the same thing, starting from the back and coming up to the front to win the championship. Now, I don't remember what year that was, but Jimmie has had that experience before. Nonetheless, it was a welcome sight to see Hendrick Motorsports score another championship. Keselowski and Logano would finish second and third, with Denny Hamlin finishing fourth, and Jimmie Johnson finishing fifth. Now, not only did Chase make history by adding another championship to Hendrick Motorsports' trophy case, he also became the third youngest Cup Series champion in NASCAR history. At the time that he won it, he was 24 years and 11 months old. And as stated during the post-race celebrations, he was just 20 days shy of his 25th birthday. So, when you think about it, 24 years old, just 20 days away from your 25th birthday, and you win the Cup Series championship, that's got to be an early birthday present for you. Nonetheless, Elliott also made history with his family becoming the third in Cup Series history to feature a father-son duo as champions. To give you some insight, let's look at the Pettys. Lee Petty ended up becoming a 3-time champion in his career. His son, the King, Richard Petty, became the first man to win 7 championships. Then you look at the Jarretts. Ned Jarrett was a 2-time champion in his career. His son Dale won the championship in 1999. We can now add the Elliots to this list, as Chase's father and Hall of Famer Awesome Bill Elliott won the championship back in 1988. And with the addition of his son's championship win this year, well, if that's not history for you, then I don't know what is. But this past Sunday was bittersweet because even though that we saw the beginning of a brand new era of NASCAR, we also bared witness to the end of an era. The season finale 500 at Phoenix was the final start for a couple of drivers, specifically Clint Bowyer and Jimmie Johnson. Clint Bowyer and Jimmie Johnson have been racing for a very long time. Bowyer ended up finishing 14th in the race, and Johnson finished 5th. Now, while I haven't really been a Clint Bowyer fan throughout my time as a NASCAR fan in general, these past couple of years have opened my eyes and have definitely made me a bit more of a Clint Bowyer fan, considering just how good he's been able to perform, or at least being able to perform as best as he can. But he's also a very entertaining guy. If we look back to when NASCAR took a break from actual racing because of the pandemic and transitioned into iRacing, I think Clint Bowyer was pretty much the highlight of the entire experience. Because whether he was on commentary or if he was racing in one of the sim rigs, it was always a blast to watch him race, especially considering how funny he was too. And even though it's really sad to see Clint go, I definitely have high hopes for whatever he chooses to do with his future. As for Jimmie Johnson, well, his career speaks for itself. 83 career wins, tying Cale Yarborough for 6th best overall in all-time wins. 7 championships, tying Richard Petty and the late Dale Earnhardt Sr. as the only 3 drivers to have won 7 championships. Think about that. Then you also have his record-setting 11 wins at Dover, the most all-time at that track. His 9 wins at Martinsville, second most all-time. Then you have his 4 wins in the All-Star race, his 4 wins at the Brickyard. You got his pair of wins in the Daytona 500. You have his historic win at Homestead, Miami from 2016. Jimmie Johnson's career speaks volumes about the legacy he's carved out for himself. And to think, he spent his entire career with just one team, Hendrick Motorsports. He's been there since 2002, his rookie season, and he's never thought of switching teams. Never drove another vehicle aside from Chevrolet. He never had a number change, always kept the number 48. And even though that he has had to switch sponsors after the partnership with Lowe's ended back at the end of the 2017 season, well, Jimmie was still able to make history no matter what. And to be able to get a top 5 finish in his final race as a full-time driver, I think that qualifies as a good day. So, at the end of this season, Jimmie Johnson's stats are this: 0 wins, 5 top 5 finishes, 10 top 10 finishes, 0 poles, 107 laps led, an average starting position of 17.31, and an average finishing position of 17.29. Then we have Chase Elliott and his championship season, which looked like this: 5 wins, 15 top 5s, 22 top 10s, 2 poles, 1,247 laps led, an average starting position of 9th, and an average finishing position of 11.69. That's not too bad for someone who's just made his first appearance in the Championship 4. But now that the 2020 season is over, albeit a very unpredictable and odd 2020 season, I've had a few days to look back and reflect. Jimmie Johnson's career in NASCAR has come to an end. And I think that as a NASCAR fan, this is probably one of the most emotional things you could ever go through. I mean, that's a given. Your favorite driver retires. I mean, it's natural for retirement to hit everybody at some point in time. But I guess that even though I knew the day was coming, I was never truly prepared. And by that, I mean that I didn't realize how emotional I was going to get. And there were multiple times throughout this past Sunday where I was in tears, that I was crying. I cried during that pace lap where Jimmie Johnson was in front of the whole field, saluting the fans one more time. I cried during those final few laps, knowing that Chase Elliott was going to win the championship, but also knowing that these were Jimmie's final few laps as a NASCAR driver. And I cried during the post-race festivities, both when Jimmie hugged Chase as well as Rick Hendrick, and also during that final interview while Chase was celebrating. I have been a Jimmie Johnson fan for as long as I can remember. I started watching NASCAR in 2003 or 2004, and the first race that I saw, or at least watched on TV, was the Daytona 500. I was sitting there with my mom, and my eyes were glued to the screen. Jimmie Johnson's name was pretty much the only one that I knew at that point, so I guess that's kind of what stuck with me over the years. But as I began to follow Jimmie's career more and more, I began to learn more about him. And I got to see some moments that were truly ones to remember for a lifetime. I got to see Jimmie win his 5th consecutive championship when he finished second to Carl Edwards at the Ford 400 in Homestead at the end of the 2010 season. I got to see Edwards and Johnson burning it down on the front stretch and celebrating together in Victory Lane. And I also got to see Jimmie win his second Daytona 500 at the start of 2013. I even got to see that fateful night in November of 2016, where Jimmie Johnson not only won the race at Homestead, but won his 7th championship. Those are memories that are going to last a lifetime in my mind. And as far as Chase Elliott goes, I think that after this past Sunday, I've just become an even bigger Chase Elliott fan. My first time seeing Chase was actually when I went to Canadian Tire Motorsport Park in Bowmanville, Ontario, a number of years ago. It was around 2016 or 2017, and it was Labor Day weekend. My birthday falls on the 1st of September, so my family usually does something to celebrate on Labor Day weekend. So we went to Canadian Tire Motorsport Park. The trucks were there. At the time, they were known as the Craftsman. They were known as not the Craftsman Truck Series, but the Camping World Truck Series. And the NASCAR Canadian Tire Series, which was later renamed to the NASCAR Pinty Series, was also there. And if you guys don't know about that particular series, it's a Canadian series. So it's pretty much exclusive to Canada. Nonetheless, I got to watch the truck race. I was going for Chase Elliott. And at the time, just like with Jimmie Johnson, his name was the only one that I knew. I knew just about nothing about the trucks. And Chase Elliott was the only driver that I knew by name. And I remember in the closing laps of the truck race that weekend, he was facing off against Ty Dillon. It was that number 3 Bass Pro Shops truck against the number 9 Napa truck. They come out of the final turn at Canadian Tire Motorsport Park, and Ty is trying to steal the lead from Chase, but he spins out by himself. He ends up spinning himself out on the front stretch, and Chase soared to victory. I managed to get pretty close to the winner's circle, but it was barricaded for obvious reasons so that fans wouldn't rush it or anything like that, wouldn't storm into the winner's circle. But I ended up getting a souvenir from that I still have to this day. The cap that the crew chief wore during the celebration. That's right, a weekend championship hat. To this day, that memory sticks in my mind as the first time I was ever exposed to the talent and the ability that Chase Elliott has. And watching him grow and evolve over these past couple seasons, I think it was worth it. And to see him become champion in just a few seasons after joining NASCAR, that is something extremely monumental. But now, I can see that the future is looking bright for Hendrick Motorsports. You have Chase Elliott as your reigning NASCAR Cup Series champion. William Byron's coming back to the 24 car for next season. Alex Bowman and his crew chief Greg Ives, they're going to be jumping from the number 88 to the number 48. So they're going to be able to continue the legacy that this car has managed to put together over the past near 2 decades. And as we learned a few months ago, Kyle Larson is going to be joining Hendrick Motorsports. And they're going to be bringing back the 5 car too. A car that's been driven by icons of this sport like Kyle Busch, Mark Martin, and Casey Kane. Personally, I think that Hendrick Motorsports is going to have a really good season in 2021. And even though it's going to start off really odd, as COVID-19 restrictions will still be put up, hopefully it'll end on a much better note, as in restrictions will be eased and more fans will be allowed to attend these events. But taking these last few days to really let it all sink in, I think reality has now set in for me that the only time that we will probably ever see Jimmie Johnson back in a NASCAR race is maybe for a special one. Perhaps the All-Star race. Maybe another shot at the Brickyard. Maybe a surprise appearance in the Daytona 500. Who knows? But at least we still have something to look forward to. Because earlier this year, Jimmie did so well in testing for IndyCar that he managed to get himself a 2-year contract signed with Chip Ganassi Racing. And that means he's going to be teaming up with Scott Dixon, one of the best drivers in IndyCar today. I know because I've attended the Honda Indy in Toronto numerous years, and I've seen what Scott Dixon can do. And believe me, it'll be a dream come true if we get to see Jimmie Johnson, a 7-time NASCAR Cup Series champion, competing on the streets of Toronto for the Honda Indy. That would be amazing. That would make my day. And I think it would make up for me not being able to actually attend a NASCAR Cup Series event and see Jimmie racing there. I think it'll make up for that. But nonetheless, next year is looking pretty bright. And overall, I just want to give a huge congratulations to Chase Elliott for becoming the Cup Series champion. He absolutely deserved it. He has continued to mature and mature over these past couple of seasons. And I think that this season, he really showed everybody what he was truly made of. Even though that he won 5 races this season, well, technically it would be 6 with his win at Phoenix. But the fact that he was able to go ahead and win the championship, that's huge. And I think this is going to be the launching point for an extraordinary career because Chase is still 24 years old. He still has many years ahead of him. And I know that he's going to go on and win more championships. I just know it. And given the youth movement that we've been seeing over the past couple of seasons with guys like Bubba Wallace and Ryan Blaney, William Byron, Alex Bowman, and of course Chase Elliott, I think the sport is going in the right direction. And yes, even if we still have this really weird playoff format, which I do like, but I still have my gripes about, I'm sure things will still turn out all right. And to close this video off, after having given my congratulations to Chase Elliott for such an extraordinary season, I would like to say thank you to Jimmie Johnson for everything that he has done for this sport, for this company, and for the fans that fuel it. Despite the fact that he didn't have the best season, and even though that this year didn't turn out to be what we thought it was going to be, and even if he didn't get the send-off that he would have preferred, Johnson still made the most of what this year had to offer. He still made the most of what he had, and he definitely finished strong in the end. Jimmie has been competing at NASCAR's highest level for nearly 20 years, and his legacy is going to be one that'll be remembered forever. Jimmie Johnson is a surefire Hall of Famer. Heck, I'll be surprised if he's not considered for the Hall of Fame next season. But overall, I'm very thankful to have been a Jimmie Johnson fan. I'm really thankful to have been part of an era, a generation of NASCAR that has completely redefined the sport. And no words can describe how thankful I am that I got to cheer on someone as amazing as Jimmie Johnson. So thank you to him for all the sacrifices he's had to make, for all the memories and the moments he's made, for everything that he's done. He won't be forgotten. And he truly deserves to be among the greatest drivers of all time, if not being called the single greatest driver in NASCAR history. So, even though that we witnessed the end of an era this past Sunday, a new era is upon us as well. So congratulations to Chase Elliott, the 2020 NASCAR Cup Series champion, and thank you, Jimmie Johnson.